So today we're going to talk about how all of these different cultures spread to each other and how they all melded together. The two big ways that happened were through war and through trade. So we're going to see those both and see them in action. So the first one is war, and the three main ideas that we're going to look at are Alexander the Great, Pax Romana, having to do with the Romans, and the Crusades. So war causes cultural diffusion and causes the movement and the change of cultures and the melding of cultures because you've got large numbers of people, armies, going in different places. And when those armies go places, they often stay in one place for a long time, spreading their ideas around that place. They also tend to take over land and impose and put into effect new laws or new ways of doing things and force people to kind of take on their culture. They also, and this is going to bring us into our second one, they also bring items with them to trade with locals. So when the army comes, that it has things that it wants to trade, and then they trade back and forth and they get ideas from each other. So one of the people that did this was Alexander the Great. As we saw yesterday, he conquered all this territory over here, and he forced other people to follow his rules, but he also showed them better ways of doing things. Other people adopted his military tactics of the phalanx and that kind of stuff, like we saw yesterday, and other people just wanted to pick up the way that he was doing things because he was so successful. There's a picture of Alexander the Great right there. He was a boss. You'll see this picture all the time. That's like the most famous portrait of him from thousands of years ago. He actually died when he was only like 30. So he did all that before he was 30 years old. Pretty awesome. The next one is the Romans, who they conquered all this territory by force. Remember, you saw those pictures of the centurions yesterday. They took it over with armies, but once they did that, then they forced people to speak their language, Latin. They forced people to follow their laws. Their main law was called the Justinian Code, and that's where we get our word for justice, from Justinian. So their laws and their language and their ideas spread all the way around their empire because they forced people to do it. Still to this day, the Spanish language that people speak in Spain, the French language people speak in France, Italian that they speak in Italy, even English and German are influenced by Latin, which was the Roman language that they put in place. So the Roman Empire at its peak took up all this land right here, and it was called Pax Romana because they actually imposed peace on all of these areas. So the Romans controlled everything, and it was Pax or peace, Romana, Roman, so Roman peace, where the cultures could spread around freely. For example, this is a church in Rome, which was the center of the Roman Empire, and then see how similar that is to the church in England, which was way up in the north of the Roman Empire. So the same kind of architectural designs, even though they're really far away, because the culture could spread all the way around because the Romans controlled everything. Another one was the Crusades. The Crusades were when Christians from Europe attacked Muslims in the Middle East, and they kind of fought back and forth for about 200 years. And they spread Christian and Muslim ideas and learning to both sides, both ways. So here's a map of the Crusades. You had all these people from Europe who were going down into the Middle East down here, and then they would attack backwards this way. So it went back and forth for hundreds of years, and they got ideas from both sides. That was the Crusades. The second way that cultural diffusion and the melding of cultures happens is through trade. And we've got three big examples: the Phoenicians, the Romans, and the Silk Road. So trade, when people trade goods, they interact with each other and they get ideas from each other. When one group specifically trades to a lot of different places, then their culture is going to spread to all of those places. So big trading cultures tend to be ones that other people have taken ideas from. And they'll also bring ideas back home to their home country after they're done trading. So the biggest example of this is the Phoenicians. They started right here in Phoenicia, but their culture spread all the way around here because they traded all over there on their ships. They were big shipbuilding, ship trading people on the Mediterranean Sea. This is right here, the Mediterranean Sea. So, for example, one of the things that their trading caused was the spread of their alphabet. So they started here, and then that spread to the Greeks, which spread to the Romans, and that's why we have an alphabet that looks similar to what theirs was thousands of years ago. So here you go. There's the Phoenician alphabet, and there's the Greek, and then the Latin or Roman alphabet that we still use today. And so you can see there's lots of things that are similar, like O and O. You've got this letter right here and that letter right there, which is very similar to the L, just flipped up and down. So lots of similarities. It took them a while. This is hundreds of years in between, but they're similar because the Phoenicians traded so much. Another one is the Silk Road. You had all kinds of things from the Roman Empire all the way over here through the Arab empires here, Persia, India. This is where the Indus River, that's that right there. And then you go all the way to ancient China over here. And they traded ideas between all of those civilizations on the Silk Road. Another really cool thing that they discovered was the Rosetta Stone, which showed that there was this communication between cultures. The Rosetta Stone was a stone where they had the same text in 3 different languages, Egyptian hieroglyphics, and then this one down here is Greek. I don't remember what the middle one is, but that showed that they communicated between these cultures, they traded between these cultures, and they knew how to talk to each other even thousands of years ago. And there was that diffusion, that melding of cultures. That's also why the company Rosetta Stone that makes the language stuff that they have ads for all the time, they're all about languages. That's why it's called Rosetta Stone. So one big example of how cultures have spread from one place to another is the idea of democracy. So it started out with the ancient Greeks. They had a direct democracy where the citizens themselves would choose the laws. And then the Romans took that idea and they had a representative democracy where elected representatives do this for them. So I want you to do to kind of see that history of how that went from one to the other. Go to this bit.ly/DTA democracy and then watch that video there. After you finish watching that video, then answer the questions that pop up right here. So the Greeks had a direct democracy, the Romans had a representative democracy, and then that idea spread around to other places as well and eventually got to the USA. And we here still have a representative democracy. We have people who vote and they elect not a parliament, but Congress and the government. And then from then on, all those things happen. But because we elect people, we don't vote directly on the laws. This is a representative democracy. So tomorrow you're going to have the chance to research your own ancient civilizations, picking the one that you think is most interesting. But today I hope you finish with a great overview of all of these civilizations.